The autumn sun filtered through the tall windows of the lecture hall, casting long shadows across the polished wooden floors. Michael, a 21-year-old freshman, sat in the third row, notebook open but hardly looking at the pages. His attention was entirely elsewhere on Professor Claire. She moved across the front of the room with a natural elegance, her dark hair catching the sunlight as she gestured while explaining the nuances of modern American poetry. Every motion, every inflection of her voice seemed to captivate him in a way that nothing else ever had. Claire, 45, had long been admired for her intellect and her ability to bring life to even the driest texts. Her students often whispered about her charm, her subtle wit, and the way her smile seemed to light up the room. Yet behind that radiant presence was a quiet melancholy, a woman who had spent years devoted to a marriage that had long since lost its warmth. She carried herself with confidence and grace, but Michael, sitting quietly in the back of her mind, was beginning to see beyond professional persona, the human warmth, the subtle vulnerability, and the spark that had survived decades. From the very first lecture, Michael had felt a strange pull toward her. At first, he dismissed it as mere admiration, an infatuation easily brushed aside. But as days passed, he found his gaze lingering, his thoughts drifting to her when he should have been focused on essays and homework. He noticed the way her eyes crinkled slightly when she laughed, the soft tilt of her head as she considered a student's question, the graceful sweep of her hand as she emphasized a line from a poem. Each movement became a detail he could not ignore, a rhythm in which his heart inexplicably danced. Claire, perceptive as she was, began to notice him as well. At first, she assumed it was the curiosity of a young student, the kind that often passes as quickly as it arrives. But then she began to catch the intensity of his gaze, the way he seemed to absorb every word she said, as though searching for something beyond the lesson. There was an earnestness in his eyes, a depth that suggested he was not merely interested in literature, but in her. A quiet, almost imperceptible shiver of awareness ran through her whenever he looked directly at her, as though she sensed the unspoken connection forming in the air between them. One afternoon, after the lecture, Michael lingered in the hallway under the pretense of gathering his books. Claire was packing her materials slowly, as if savoring the quiet of the empty classroom. Their eyes met, and for a fleeting moment, the ordinary noise of the university, the distant chatter of students, the hum of fluorescent lights, faded into nothingness. Michael hesitated, then approached her desk. "Professor Claire?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I had a question about the poem you mentioned in class today." Claire looked up, her face neutral, but her eyes curious. "Of course, Michael," she replied. Her tone was soft, inviting, but professional, the kind of voice that could soothe and command respect all at once. He explained his confusion over a line, but as they discussed it, something shifted. Their conversation strayed from the poem to broader questions about life, about choices, about what drives a person to truly feel passion. Michael spoke haltingly, unsure of how much to reveal, while Claire listened, intrigued by the sincerity and intensity he displayed. In that small, quiet space, a subtle tension began to grow, a sense of intimacy neither of them had anticipated. Michael's heart raced as he tried to hide his fascination, yet the truth of his feelings pressed itself into every word, every glance. Claire, aware of the unspoken undercurrent, felt a thrill she had not experienced in years. There was a dangerous beauty in the way his admiration was tinged with longing, in the way he looked at her not just as a teacher, but as someone he deeply desired. Days turned into weeks, and their interactions became a delicate dance. Michael found himself intentionally seeking her attention, lingering after class, volunteering for discussions, finding excuses to talk to her outside of lectures. Each small exchange, her approving nod, a smile that lingered a second longer than necessary, a hand brushing against his papers, ignited a spark he could not suppress. Claire, despite herself, responded with quiet curiosity. She never crossed the boundaries of propriety openly, but she allowed herself moments of observation, of noticing his presence, of recognizing the subtle electricity in the classroom. She wondered what it would be like to explore this connection, yet the rational part of her mind reminded her of the consequences, the age gap, the professional risk, the judgment of others. Still, the attraction simmered, undeniable and intense. One chilly evening, as the campus was bathed in golden sunset light, Michael and Claire found themselves alone in the lecture hall again, reviewing a text for an upcoming assignment. The room was silent, except for the soft scratching of pen on paper. Claire moved closer to show him a passage, and their shoulders brushed lightly. Michael felt a jolt of warmth and awareness, the first physical reminder that his emotions were no longer confined to admiration. Claire paused, looking at him with an expression that was difficult to read. There was concern, certainly, but also a spark of something more, a recognition of the unusual connection that had formed between them. Neither spoke of it, and yet both felt it, the invisible thread drawing them closer. The air between them was thick with possibility, fragile and thrilling, a promise of something forbidden yet irresistible. That night, as Michael walked back to his dormitory beneath the amber glow of street lamps and falling leaves, he felt a strange mixture of fear and exhilaration. He knew he was drawn into something he could neither fully understand nor control. For Claire, the thought of the young student's earnest eyes and the quiet intensity of his admiration lingered in her mind, unsettling yet oddly comforting. In the days that followed, every glance, every incidental touch, every shared word became charged with tension. They had stepped unknowingly into a world where their roles as teacher and student were no longer simple. The awakening of attraction had begun, subtle yet undeniable, a quiet storm building beneath the surface of ordinary university life. And thus, the first chapter of their story unfolded, a story of longing, curiosity, and forbidden desire, where two hearts from different worlds began to discover each other in ways neither had imagined possible. The library was quieter than usual that afternoon. The low hum of fluorescent lights and the soft rustle of turning pages created a private world for anyone who dared to linger past normal hours. Michael had chosen this moment intentionally. He needed to see Claire, not just as a professor, but as someone whose presence stirred something he couldn't yet name. Claire was arranging books on the shelf, her back straight, her hands deftly moving volumes into place. The familiar sight, so ordinary, filled Michael with an odd mixture of anticipation and fear. He felt the weight of his own heartbeat pressing against his ribs, each thump a reminder of the feelings he had tried so hard to ignore. "Professor Claire," he began, his voice hesitant, almost swallowed by the cavernous silence of the library. She turned, eyes meeting his. There was a quiet curiosity in her gaze, not surprise, not judgment, just attentive presence. "Yes, Michael," she replied softly, adjusting her glasses. The calmness of her voice did little to settle the storm inside him. I want to talk about the poem again," he said, forcing his voice steady. "About the meaning behind the final lines. I just can't stop thinking about it." Claire's lips curved into a small, knowing smile. She stepped closer, not crossing any line, but close enough that he could feel the subtle warmth of her presence. "You think too much, Michael," she teased lightly, though there was a hidden layer in her tone, a softness that went beyond the words. Sometimes, a poem isn't meant to be fully understood, only felt. His gaze dropped for a moment, ashamed of how much his mind was straying from literature to the person in front of him. I know, it's just," he stopped, struggling for words, the raw honesty of his emotions catching his throat. "I feel something whenever I'm around you. I don't know how to explain it. I shouldn't even feel this way, but I do." Claire felt a sudden tension in the air, the words hitting her unexpectedly. She had noticed his glances, the way he lingered, the subtle, almost imperceptible yearning in his expressions. But hearing him admit it so openly stirred a complex mixture of emotions inside her. Surprise, yes. Concern, certainly. And beneath it all, a faint thrill that she had not felt in many years. Michael's eyes searched hers, desperate for a sign of understanding, of acknowledgement, of forgiveness for feeling what society would consider improper. His palms were clammy, his breath shallow. I shouldn't say this. I know it's wrong. You're my professor. You're honest," Claire interrupted gently, placing a hand on the book she had been holding. Her eyes softened as she looked at him. "That's not wrong, Michael. Feeling something isn't wrong. It's how you respond that matters." Michael swallowed hard. The heat rose to his cheeks as the weight of the confession settled between them. He wanted to continue, to tell her everything his heart carried, but the words faltered on his lips. Claire stepped slightly closer, careful not to intrude, but close enough that he could sense the full measure of her presence. "Tell me," she whispered. "Tell me what you feel. It's safe here. No one else can hear us." The request, so simple, gave Michael courage. He took a trembling breath, then spoke in a barely audible voice. I admire you, not just as a teacher, but as a person. Every time I see you, I feel like nothing else matters. I think about you constantly. I want to be near you, to know you, even if it's wrong." Claire listened in silence, her mind racing. She knew the boundaries, the dangers, the social judgment waiting to pounce if anyone discovered. Yet, there was a part of her that had longed for connection, for someone to see her beyond her professional facade, beyond her years, beyond the life she had been living. And in Michael, she saw sincerity, admiration, and a vulnerability that stirred something she thought she had buried forever. She let a small smile grace her lips, a smile that acknowledged his courage without offering false hope. "I see you, Michael," she said softly. "I've noticed you for some time, too. There's the sincerity in you that I can't ignore. You're not just a student in my class. You're someone who sees me, truly sees me." Michael's chest tightened, the tension, the fear, the uncertainty, all mixed with a dizzying relief. He dared a small step closer, feeling the electricity of their shared understanding. "So he asked, voice breaking slightly. "I can't promise anything," Claire replied, her eyes steady on his. "But I'm not dismissing what I feel either. You're brave, Michael, braver than most people your age. And maybe that counts for something." For a moment, the world outside the library ceased to exist. The quiet tapping of the rain against the windows, the distant hum of fluorescent lights, all faded into insignificance. What remained was a fragile, intense connection between them, a bond neither expected, yet both had yearned for without knowing it. Michael exhaled slowly, relief and nervous anticipation coursing through him. I don't want to make this uncomfortable," he said. I needed to tell you." Claire nodded, understanding completely. "You did the right thing. And now we both know. That's the first step, honesty. The rest will take slowly, carefully, together, in a way that respects who we are and what we feel." As they gathered their things and prepared to leave the library, an unspoken agreement lingered in the space between them. There was desire, there was attraction, and there was something deeper than either had anticipated. It was a seed planted, small but potent, ready to grow into something neither could yet name, something that would transform their lives forever. Outside, the campus was bathed in the soft glow of the late afternoon sun. Michael walked beside Claire, hearts pounding, mind swirling with possibilities. For the first time, he felt that the world could change, not through books, exams, or lectures, but through a connection as rare and unpredictable as theirs. And so, the confession was made. The secret tension lifted slightly, leaving space for something new, something forbidden yet beautiful, something that neither age nor circumstance could entirely contain. The story between Michael and Claire had begun in earnest. The library had emptied out completely by evening, leaving only the softening of the lights and the occasional rustle of papers. Outside, the campus was quiet, bathed in the golden haze of late autumn. Michael lingered, pretending to organize his notes, but really, he was waiting. His heart pounded with anticipation, a mixture of fear and longing. Claire, too, seemed aware of the tension, moving slowly among the shelves, her presence both soothing and electrifying. "Michael, are you still here?" she asked softly, a teasing note in her voice. "Yes, I wanted to ask one more question about the essay," he stammered, though his mind was far from essays. Claire smiled, tilting her head. There was something in his hesitation, in the intensity of his gaze, that drew her in. "Of course. Come, sit over here," she said, gesturing to a quiet corner near the large windows. The fading sunlight poured in, casting a warm glow around them, making the moment feel suspended in time. As he sat down, Michael could hardly focus on the papers in front of him. All he could feel was the closeness of Claire, the subtle scent of her perfume, the way her fingers brushed against the edge of his notebook. Every small movement seemed magnified, every glance charged with unspoken meaning. They began discussing the essay, their voices low, intimate. Slowly, the conversation shifted from academics to personal reflections. Favorite books, childhood memories, hopes, and regrets. Michael found himself opening up in ways he never had before, revealing part of himself that he usually kept hidden. Claire listened, her eyes soft, occasionally offering a gentle smile or nod of understanding. Then came a pause. Neither of them spoke, yet the silence was electric. Michael felt a sudden impulse to reach out, but doubt and fear froze his hand. Claire noticed his hesitation and, with a careful, deliberate movement, rested her hand lightly on his. The touch was fleeting, almost accidental, yet it sent a jolt through him. His pulse quickened, his breath caught in his throat. "Michael," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Look at me." He lifted his eyes to hers. The room seemed to shrink. The only thing that existed was a space between them. Her gaze was intense but not predatory. It was curious, warm, and inviting all at once. I don't know what to say," he admitted, voice trembling. "I'm scared and I shouldn't feel this way." "You don't have to say anything," Claire replied softly. "You don't have to justify your feelings. I see them. I see you. That's enough for now." Michael's hand moved slightly, brushing hers. It was accidental at first, but then he held it, finding reassurance in the contact. Claire didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned slightly closer, the warmth of her body brushing against his, the subtle scent of her perfume enveloping him. Their conversation slowed, replaced by the unspoken language of glances, breathing, and shared proximity. Michael felt a heat in his chest, a thrill that was both terrifying and exhilarating. Claire's presence was magnetic, drawing him in, erasing the barriers he built around his heart. I want to be near you," Michael confessed finally, his voice a whisper that carried all the longing he felt. Claire's eyes softened, her lips curving into a small, knowing smile. "And I am here," she said gently. "I'm not moving away, Michael. I'm not leaving." The words were simple, but they carried a weight that neither had spoken aloud before. Michael's heart soared, yet a flicker of fear remained. Fear of judgment, fear of crossing boundaries, fear of the unknown. But beneath it all, there was a desire too strong to ignore. Without thinking, Michael leaned forward, and Claire met him halfway. Their foreheads touched briefly, an intimate gesture that sent shivers down his spine. The world outside the library, grades, classes, rules, seemed to vanish. For a moment, there was only them, suspended in a bubble of closeness and vulnerability. Then Claire rested her hand lightly on his cheek, a gesture tender yet electric. "Michael," she whispered, "you don't have to be afraid. Not here, not now." He closed his eyes, letting the fear dissolve, letting the moment take over. Their lips met briefly at first, a hesitant, delicate touch that felt both forbidden and right. Michael's hands trembled as he held her, and Claire's gentle warmth reassured him, grounding him in the present. Minutes stretched like hours. The kiss lingered, slow and tentative, each movement a careful dance of desire and restraint. They pulled back slightly, breathing hard, foreheads pressed together. The library, quiet and empty, became a private universe where nothing else mattered. I've never felt like this," Michael whispered, voice breaking. "Not with anyone." Claire smiled softly, brushing a loose strand of hair behind his ear. "Neither have I," she admitted. "And yet here we are." From that night on, their relationship shifted. They began meeting in quiet corners of the campus, exchanging notes hidden in books, sitting together at cafes after hours, and discovering each other in ways neither had imagined. Every shared glance, every secret touch, every word spoken softly in confidence became a thread, weaving their connection tighter. The tension between them was no longer only anticipation. It was a promise, fragile but undeniable, of something deeper. They were aware of the risks, the societal judgment, and the complexities of their age difference. Yet each moment together was worth the uncertainty. Each encounter a step into a world they both longed to inhabit. By the time Michael walked back to his dorm that night, the autumn wind brushing against his face, he felt a profound mix of exhilaration and vulnerability. He had crossed the first threshold of confession, and now the door to something extraordinary had been unlocked. Claire, too, felt the stirrings of hope, desire, and the thrill of forbidden possibility, wondering where the secret encounter would lead them next. The seed had been planted, and though the path ahead was uncertain, both knew they were moving towards something transformative, something eternal. The weeks that followed their secret encounter were a delicate balance of exhilaration and caution. Michael and Claire moved carefully, savoring their stolen moments, while remaining acutely aware of the world outside. Every glance in class, every shared smile in the library, carried a weight that was both thrilling and terrifying. The risk of discovery lingered like a shadow, yet neither could deny the intensity of their connection. Claire wrestled with the consequences. She had a reputation to uphold, a career she valued, and a life shaped by years of routine and social expectation. Her marriage, long a hollow shell, had left her accustomed to solitude and quiet compromise. Yet with Michael, she felt alive, seen, and desired in a way that defied decades of habit. The age gap and the student-teacher boundary loomed large in her mind, but her heart insisted on ignoring them. Michael, on the other hand, was growing into the courage that only deep, unspoken love can inspire. He knew their relationship was unconventional, even controversial, but he had no desire to hide his feelings. Each encounter strengthened his resolve, and each touch, glance, and whispered word wove them closer together. One crisp Saturday afternoon, Claire invited Michael to meet her at a quiet cafe off campus. The sun filtered through the windows, casting warm patterns on the wooden floor. As he approached, Claire rose to greet him, and for a moment, the years, the fears, the social boundaries all melted away. They sat across from each other, the world outside muted by the intensity of the moment. "Michael," she said softly, "I can't keep pretending I'm okay with how things are. My life, it's been stagnant for too long. And you make me feel alive again." Michael reached across the table, taking her hand gently. "I know, Claire. I've never felt like this before. I want to be with you. Always." Claire's eyes glistened with a mixture of tears and relief. "Then we'll face whatever comes together," she whispered. The path forward was not easy. Claire filed for divorce from her husband, enduring weeks of tense negotiations and awkward conversations. Gossip swirled quietly through the campus, rumors flaring and dying. Yet Michael and Claire held fast to each other. The strength of their bond became a shield, protecting them from judgment and fear. Finally, the day arrived when they could no longer deny the truth. Away from prying eyes, in a small garden filled with late-blooming flowers and golden autumn leaves, Michael and Claire exchanged vows. The ceremony was simple, intimate, and suffused with a sense of quiet triumph. Their love, once hidden and forbidden, was now declared and celebrated in the only way that mattered, between their hearts. Life after marriage settled into a rhythm that was both ordinary and extraordinary. Michael continued his studies, now with the confidence that Claire's love instilled in him. Claire, freed from the constraints of a loveless marriage, embraced her teaching with renewed passion, while nurturing the private, tender relationship that was theirs alone. Not long after, their family grew. Their son, James, was born on a crisp spring morning, a living symbol of the love that had defied conventions and expectations. Michael and Claire reveled in the ordinary magic of parenthood. The first cries, the tiny hands gripping theirs, the quiet moments of wonder and laughter. Through James, their bond deepened further, layering their love with purpose, joy, and an enduring sense of connection. Years passed. Michael, once a shy, uncertain freshman, now ran a small business in town, combining his love for literature with practical livelihood. Claire eventually retired from teaching, but remained a fixture in the community, respected and admired not only for her intellect, but for her courage in pursuing happiness against the odds. Their relationship, once secret and fragile, became a stable, loving partnership. They traveled, explored their shared interests, and built a home where laughter, warmth, and affection flourished. The initial thrill of forbidden desire matured into profound respect, understanding, and unshakable companionship. Michael often reflected on their early days. The stolen glances in class, the secret meetings in the library, the delicate tension of their first encounter. He marveled at how those fragile beginnings had blossomed into a love that not only survived scrutiny, but thrived despite it. Claire shared the same sentiment, remembering the young man whose eyes had first captivated her and who had taught her that love cannot be bound by age, profession, or social expectation. Together, they demonstrated that true love is a force beyond judgment, beyond societal boundaries, and beyond the passing of years. It requires courage, honesty, and the willingness to embrace uncertainty. Their journey from forbidden attraction to eternal partnership was not without struggle, but it was rich, rewarding, and ultimately triumphant. And so, their story endures, a testament to the power of connection, the bravery required to follow one's heart, and the beauty of a love that is both forbidden and eternal. Even as their son James grew older and the campus around them evolved, the lessons of their love remained constant. Passion paired with respect, desire tempered by understanding, and a bond that no obstacle could sever. Theirs was a love story that transcended time, a narrative that began in whispered glances and culminated in a lifetime of shared joy. Michael and Claire had discovered a truth both simple and profound. True love sees only the heart. Age, societal norms, and fear are powerless against the pull of two souls destined to find each other. Their lives, once separate, were now inextricably entwined, carrying forward a legacy of courage, devotion, and unwavering affection. And in the quiet moments, when the world faded and it was just the three of them, Michael, Claire, and James, the profound contentment of love fully realized settled over them like a gentle, enduring warmth. Years later, Michael, Claire, and their son James would sit together on the porch of their cozy home, the golden light of late afternoon casting long shadows across the yard. The laughter of children playing in the neighborhood drifted in, mingling with the gentle hum of life unfolding around them. For Michael and Claire, every quiet moment carried a memory of how far they had come. From stolen glances in classrooms and secret conversations in empty libraries, to a life built together on trust, understanding, and courage. Their journey had been unconventional. The world might have judged, questioned, or doubted them, but none of that mattered. They had learned that love, when genuine, cannot be contained by societal expectations or the ticking of a clock. The connection between two hearts, once awakened, can grow into something timeless, something that defines the very rhythm of life itself. Claire had retired from teaching, yet she still nurtured young minds through tutoring, sharing both knowledge and the wisdom of her own experiences. Michael's small business flourished, a reflection of his creativity, dedication, and the support of a partner who truly saw him. Together, they built a life full of ordinary joys. Family dinners, quiet evenings, laughter, and simple routines. But all of it carried the extraordinary weight of love that had survived its first trials. James, curious and lively, grew up with the quiet assurance that his parents' bond was unshakable. He observed the gentle glances between them, the subtle gestures of affection, and the comfort of a shared life built on honesty and devotion. Through him, Michael and Claire saw their legacy, a testament to the strength of love, courage, and resilience. Their story was not just about passion. It was about commitment, trust, and the courage to follow one's heart despite the obstacles. It reminded them, and anyone who heard it, that love does not see age, status, or convention. It sees only the soul. And so, their journey, which had begun with a secret glance and a whispered confession, continued through a lifetime of shared memories, laughter, and unwavering devotion. It left a quiet but enduring truth for all to witness. That true love, once found, can transform life into something magical, eternal, and profoundly beautiful. Remember, Michael and Claire would say to themselves, and anyone willing to listen, love is fearless, and when it is real, it finds a way always.